Right now, on a Women's History Month edition of Currents News, two religious sisters are making a huge difference as they feed the hungry. Plus,
God wants us to be our best versions of ourselves in the world, and we have to be not afraid to say yes to that.
she's been named the first female headmaster of Xavier High School.
It's always been a dream of mine to incorporate my faith with my profession.
Jasmine Salazar talks about her role as Victim Assistance Coordinator and Vice Chancellor for the Diocese of Brooklyn. And a retired NYPD officer looks back at the path her mother blazed for her years ago in the department. Hello, I'm Christine Persichetti. We are celebrating Women's History Month here on Currents News. For the first time in history, a woman is leading Xavier High School in Manhattan, becoming part of a small number of female Jesuit school headmasters. Emily Drewby spoke to her and shares her story.
For 174 years, the students who have attended prestigious Xavier High School have been led by men. Now that's changing.
I felt really privileged to be able to help elicit pride of women doing this work, because I know that I am a part of a much wider fabric.
Kim Smith named the school's 55th headmaster, making history and changing the face of education. Out of 60 Jesuit high schools in the country, only 16 have female principals or headmasters. She makes 17. Small numbers of women in top education positions is a national trend. For example, according to the Superintendents Association, only 24% of superintendents in the U.S. are women. Xavier can now say they're helping to change that.
It is a momentous sort of step for us that I'm very excited about.
Lindsay Willard helped hire Kim.
It's always important to have certainly representation of, a diverse group of people in positions of leadership. So it's inspiring to be, especially as a person, as a woman who is in a position of leadership here.
During the hiring process, students also got to interview Kim. Patrick Burke says she stood out for all the right reasons.
And it wasn't just listening because she had to sit there and had to listen to us. She really wanted to listen to us. She really wanted to hear our stories, our backgrounds, hear our thoughts and our opinions, and you could tell she absorbed it.
It's a big job. Overseeing the academic programs, service projects, athletics, and more, Kim will be relying on her faith.
God wants us to be our best versions of ourselves in the world, and we have to be not afraid to say yes to that.
Kim is currently finishing out the year as a vice principal at Boston College High School. She's been there 20 years and started as a teacher. She'll take over at Xavier in July. In Manhattan, Emily Drewby, Currents News.
Two women of faith are making it their mission to feed the hungry in the Diocese of Brooklyn as the pandemic leaves many desperate to make ends meet. Sister Caroline and Sister Marie of St. John's Bread and Life feed thousands every year. Jessica Easthope went to Bedford-Stuyvesant for their story.
Anyone who visits St. John's Bread and Life can tell it's a well-oiled machine. It feeds 25,000 people every year and sustains 21 other food pantries.
1 zucchini, 2 peppers, 1 bag of beans.
But what you can't tell by just looking is the machine is powered by nuns.
When you belong to a religious community, if you put the word out that, you need volunteers, people show up.
Sister Caroline Tweedy is the executive director of Bread and Life, an organization with an upper management staff made up of mostly women.
We look at a problem collectively. We address that collectively. We bring a woman's intuition to what we do.
I think close to 3 million.
Sister Caroline and Associate Executive Director Sister Marie Sorensen take a hands-on approach to ending hunger, something they say comes naturally for sisters.
We jump in and we do the work that needs to be done.
St. John's Bread and Life called on communities of sisters to help support its mission. In just days, enough money was raised to feed the people who rely on the pantry for 3 months. And they're not stopping there. Some have even joined the volunteer staff. Sister Melissa Camardo blends in.
It's run by so many talented, committed, passionate women, and it's a really great example to all of us.
Sister Melissa isn't afraid to get her hands dirty, because after all, ending hunger in a borough where 20% of its residents are food insecure is heavy lifting.
What I can do to make a difference, try to use my own hands and heart to respond to that.
The sisters say what puts Bread and Life a cut above the rest is its powerful women and their ability to work together.
Women know things can't get done alone. The power is in working together, sharing talents.
During the most challenging of times, the machine doesn't stop because these sisters won't let it. It's all part of their power. In Bedford-Stuyvesant, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
In the Diocese of Brooklyn, a layperson holds a top spot in the chancery. Jasmine Salazar is one of the first people victims of sexual abuse talk to when they contact the diocese. And she's also the vice chancellor. We caught up with her and talked about her important roles in helping people. Pope Francis has taken more steps toward inclusion of women than any other pope in history. His commitment has flowed down from the Vatican all the way to Brooklyn.
Pope Francis has definitely paved the way. He's refreshing with his ideas and his approach.
That's all right now.
Jasmine Salazar is representing women of faith as the Diocese of Brooklyn's first ever layperson and Latina to be named Vice Chancellor.
It's always been a dream of mine to incorporate my faith with my profession. And so when the opportunity came to be able to do that over here in the Diocese of Brooklyn, I was like, this is what I always wanted to do.
In her role, Jasmine solves problems for anyone who calls on her, including giving a voice to those who need it most as victim assistance coordinator for the diocese.
We fall back on our faith when anything happens in our lives, but that is taken away from someone that's been abused. We have to rectify that.
Jasmine's all-women team is the support system she needs to succeed. For them, she's an inspiration.
She sets the tone for many of us women who would like to follow her path. She holds everything together and is the rock of this place.
At one point, Jasmine never thought a full life and career was possible. Of her many titles, the one she's most proud of is Mama Bear.
Being a single mom, this is not something that I thought I would ever be welcomed. And quite honestly, I had a couple of things in my background that I felt, ruled me out.
Jasmine says to be the first is an honor, but she makes the most impact by being someone others can relate to, a woman who has overcome adversity through faith. While women everywhere are still carving their own paths to being the first, Jasmine is opening her own doors. Jasmine marked 3 years as Vice Chancellor a few months ago. 1 year ago, Elmhurst Hospital in Queens was the center of the pandemic in New York City. On one fateful day, 13 people died in just 24 hours. But today, there's hope at the hospital. Elmhurst has a new CEO, and Emily Druby tells us her faith will lead the hospital to better days.
Last March, Elmhurst faced apocalyptic conditions. Overwhelmed by COVID patients pouring in, stretchers filled the hallways as fear filled the air. Some days, more people died than they had room for in the morgue. A year later, and a new leader has been tapped to help the hospital learn from its past and grow. A local Catholic woman, Helen Arteaga Landaverde. She has firsthand experience. She was a COVID patient here.
I feel like God had a plan. God was like, you're going to go through these dark days, Helen, but at the end, it's going to help you in such a way that you're going to take this hospital and this community to a new future.
Now she's got plans for the hospital, requesting $30 million for upgrades and repairs so far.
I have so many dreams for this hospital. One of them is to improve our technology, improve our equipment, get more providers to come here.
Helen tells us as she starts to work on these big changes, she'll be relying heavily on her faith.
Every step where I have felt like, oh, I don't think I can take a step more, or I don't have the strength, my faith has come in and said, yes, you can.
She's a longtime parishioner of Our Lady of Sorrows in Corona, Queens. She went to their Catholic academy.
Faith has always been a defining value in her, both her family and her her story.
The church's pastor, Father Manuel de Jesus Rodriguez, describes Helen as a pillar of the church and the community. Recently, they congratulated and thanked her publicly. Helen's drive to help others came from tragedy, the loss of her father in 1998.
I would hear his voice over and over again. He was like, Helen, you can't fix the world, but you can fix this one block.
So she opened Plaza del Sol, a community healthcare center that helps everyone, whether they can afford it or not.
That clinic is a life-saving angel here in Corona.
Now she's ready for her next step, continuing to make her father proud and help others.
Plaza del Sol helped me fix that block, and then Elmer's Hospital is my next block.
Helen says she's excited to continue the fight to make sure everyone, no matter their race, their immigration status, or their net worth, has good health care. In Corona, Queens, Emily Druby, Currents News.
Another New York woman in the spotlight is Stephanie Clark. She's a retired NYPD officer who logged more than 2 decades on the job. As Jessica Easthope tells us from Massapequa, she followed in the footsteps of someone very close to her.
That's when she was in SOD.
Stephanie Clark says her mother, Eileen, was protecting and serving long before she joined the NYPD.
It was unusual back then to have a mother working, as well as having a career that was, kind of different and forward for women back then.
This is her dress blouse.
Eileen Clark joined the NYPD in 1969 when the department was only 2% women. She was among the first group of women to go out on patrol in 1972.
It was the whole class. Yeah. 7 women. Yeah.
Then in 1987, Stephanie followed in her mom's footsteps. Joining the force and having a career her mom paved the way for.
It was nice to say that I was second generation female member of the service. I really did like saying that.
It's a little small.
Stephanie retired in 2013 after 26 years on the job. Though her choice in career mirrored her mom's,
they put on her job, her career.
The path life and the NYPD took them down was different.
So we were never the same rank. She was a policewoman and a detective, and I was a police officer, sergeant, and lieutenant.
Stephanie was the second woman in the NYPD to ever be part of a promotion class while pregnant. She said her mom made Catholic values part of her job as an officer.
Anti-abortion, anti-death penalty. Her Catholic upbringing did bring her into this life also. Just wanting to help people.
Shield, my mother's shield.
And those same values became her own.
Not judge people, be careful how I'm treating people, to be true to my faith. It's not hard to do, when you're able to help people.
Eileen passed away of cancer at 51, just shy of her 20th anniversary on the job.
He said, your mother would have been so proud. I know she would have been. And I wish she was there to see it. But, she was there.
Stephanie says her mom is a trailblazer, not only for women on the force, but for all officers who joined the NYPD to help others. In Massapequa, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
There's a lot more news headed your way as we continue our coverage of Women's History Month. New York City is honoring the Catholic activist who's now on the path to sainthood. Plus,
we have so many international religious who come because they feel welcome here.
A trailblazing nun in the Diocese of Brooklyn is making sure other sisters feel at home when they come to the U.S. And a look at the one nun vital to the Pope's plan of expanding women's roles in the church. An update to a story we've been following on Catholic high school sports. After months of waiting, students who play outdoor high-risk sports got the answer they've been waiting to hear. They can start their season next month. This follows months of the schools calling on the city for a plan to let them play. Catholic schools have been opened safely since September, while city schools were closed due to the pandemic. According to the New York City Department of Health sports website, football and lacrosse games can begin the weekend of April 17th. There's no word when high-risk indoor sports will get to play. While on the path to sainthood, Catholic social activist and Brooklyn native Dorothy Day is receiving an earthly accolade, a new Staten Island ferry boat named in her honor. The Dorothy Day is a 4,500 passenger ferry boat and is the third in a new fleet aimed at connecting Lower Manhattan to Staten Island. The boat is expected to arrive in New York Harbor sometime next year. Speaking of trailblazers, Sister Marianne Seton Lepiccolo is the Episcopal delegate for religious in the diocese, making those from other countries feel welcome in the U.S. Once again, here's Jessica Easthope with the story from Diker Heights.
Sister Marianne Lepiccolo feels at home in Brooklyn. That's because she is home. The borough native, who has held the position of Episcopal delegate for religious for 22 years, spends her days welcoming others home into the Diocese of Immigrants.
It's a Diocese of Immigrants, we say that all the time. But I see them, I see the faces.
Religious from all over the world come here for education, for ministry, and for roots.
It's a wonderful neighborhood.
The roots Sister Marianne has never taken for granted.
I think there is a sense of welcome, and I'm very conscious of that. I often say to them, look, if I were moving to Kenya, I would want somebody to make friends with me right away.
As Episcopal delegate, Sister Marianne oversees more than 850 religious sisters, brothers, and priests in the Diocese of Brooklyn. Now with a surge of international sisters, her role has taken on new meaning.
They come and they don't have a provincial or a regional superior or superior, so they call me the big mother. Oh, you're just like our mother.
Sister Marianne works to find housing that makes people from across the world feel like this urban jungle is their own.
I really work hard at finding them a place where they will be comfortable too, because the cultural differences are real. They're not good, bad, or indifferent. They're just real.
As for women being excluded, Sister Marianne says that's never been the case here in Brooklyn, especially not under Bishop DiMarzio.
The bishop has been super sensitive. What's happening from our perspective that he should be more aware of, because perhaps as a man he didn't notice it or he doesn't hear it. I just find that that's a side of him that's so open to learning, like he wants to know because he wants to serve the best he can.
She's looked to as a leader in the Diocese of Brooklyn, the go-to person. But to the people whose lives she's touched, she's the big mother. In Diker Heights, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
6 nuns who died helping Ebola patients are one step closer to sainthood. In 1995, the Italian missionaries were serving others in the Democratic Republic of Congo during an Ebola outbreak. Pope Francis recently recognized their bravery. Sisters of the Poor now face a similar situation as they take care of COVID-19 patients.
Unfortunately, in one of the residences we serve, quite a few of the elderly died during the pandemic. In another home for disabled people, many of the residents were infected, so the Institute called to the younger nuns to help, and they stepped up without hesitation.
The ordeal remains in the sisters' memory. The selfless courage continues to be a source of inspiration. At the Vatican, one nun is vital to the Holy Father's plans of increasing a woman's role in the church. The sister has already been part of a historic first and hopes to help other women within the church do the same. This is Sister Maria Luisa Berzosza. She's known as a trailblazing religious woman who participated in both the synod dedicated to young people and the one dedicated to the Amazon. She made headlines in May of 2019 when Pope Francis appointed her one of 3 women consultors to the Synod of Bishops.
During the Synod on Youth, the Pope modified the rules and used his authority to allow superiors general to vote, whether priests or not. That's when it no longer made any difference to the superiors general whether I was a woman or a man. And that led us to ask ourselves, why make this distinction?
The Spanish nun took her vows in 1965 and has dedicated her life to educating the poor and underprivileged in Spain, Argentina, and Italy. She's also a vocal advocate for the role of women in the church. Sister Berzosza says reviving the spirit of the Second Vatican Council is one of the main focuses of Pope Francis's pontificate.
I've been hurt by the church, but I never wanted to leave. I always wanted to stay. I mean, this is it. This is the Church of Jesus. Jesus and the church are one and the same to me, not separate. The church leads me to Jesus, and Jesus leads me back to his church.
Sister Berzosza says the church must search for creative ways to address the challenges of our time. But above all, the church must listen and give a voice to all people.
I offer spiritual guidance, give spiritual exercises. I listen to people and accompany them in formation. I'm an educator, even if this is not a school. In our groups, I emphasize how ours must be a synodal and participatory church.
As a member of the permanent body that prepares and organizes the Synod's General Assemblies, Sister Berzosza will be involved in the next one, which is scheduled for 2022 and is set to address the topic of synodality within the Church. The Vatican will have subdued celebrations for Holy Week and Easter for the second year in a row due to coronavirus restrictions. Most of the events will be celebrated primarily in St. Peter's Basilica with a very small congregation. While the Pope is expected to preside over most of the liturgical celebrations, he is not expected to lead the Mass of the Lord's Supper on Holy Thursday. In the Diocese of Brooklyn, the tablet is helping you find a service this Holy Week. The paper has a full list of masses and vigils from a variety of parishes all around Brooklyn and Queens, starting from Palm Sunday and ending with Mass on Easter Sunday. For a look at the full schedule, as well as all Holy Week updates, just go to thetablet.org. And we will carry some of the services right here on Net TV, starting with Palm Sunday Masses. Net TV will show 2 vigil services Saturday night, the 5 p.m. in Italian and the 6 p.m. in Polish. On Sunday, there will be 3 masses, the 9 a.m. in Creole, the 11 a.m. in English, and the 1:30 p.m. in Spanish. Going to church on Good Friday means you'll be helping Christians in the Holy Land. Collections during that service go to a Vatican effort that supports the work of the Franciscans there. They have maintained the holy places of pilgrimage where Jesus Christ walked for the past 800 years. The funds also send support to Christians in the Middle East. And when you go to church, be sure to pick up this week's tablet for stories you won't find anywhere else, like this full-page spread about the first ever student who was registered at the Mary Louis Academy. She was destined to be at the all-girls high school in Queens since the first brick was laid down in 1937. The full story is available in churches now. Subscribing to the tablet helps ensure that the team who brings you the news can continue to do their work. Just head to thetablet.org/subscribe, or you can call 877-883-8356. That number again, 877-883-8356, and you'll start receiving home delivery. There's more to come on Currents News. Actress and producer Roma Downey talks about her new faith-based movie just in time for Holy Week. The Hollywood Reporter has called her one of entertainment's 100 most powerful women. Actress and producer Roma Downey is putting out a new film called Resurrection. It follows Jesus' death and resurrection from the point of view of the disciples. Downey is also known for the hit show Touched by an Angel. I spoke to her ahead of the movie's premiere about why this movie is so needed now.
We've come through an incredibly challenging year with the COVID pandemic and all the division that we've experienced and isolation, disconnected from our families. And I think in a way, if you use the film as a symbol, a parallel symbol, a year ago we were all locked into our own tombs. And we're also ready to step out into the light. I think we're all ready for a resurrection.
Resurrection premieres on March 27th on Discovery+. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.